Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of our podcast. And I'm super excited to introduce you to this entrepreneur. But before I introduce her, I want you to think about all the times where you try to come up with the right words, right? You got the right idea. You got the right idea, you got the right concept. Then you're starting to sit down and you're trying to put the right words together and it doesn't work out. Wouldn't it be amazing if you had someone like a muse almost that came to you and said, hey, look, I got the right words for you, right? And you can actually get that by just doing a couple of clicks and getting that. Well, that's why I'm super excited to have Anika Watkins, founder of Moxie Copywriting, on the show. Anika, what's up?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Glenn. I'm really excited to be here today and share some wisdom from some of the things I've learned over the last 10 years.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of what your company offers. I'm a big fan of you. And you have like such an awesome story. So before we just dive into what your company does and what you do for entrepreneurs like myself, there's always a beginning, right? There's always a starting point, okay? So let's kind of like go back in time. We're going to go back in time a couple of times during this podcast, but let's go back in time for a little bit. And before you created Moxie Copywriting, what was Anika's life like before you got into this business? So give us a little bit of background here.
Definitely. So I grew up with an entrepreneurial family. So my mom owned a cookie factory, and I grew up watching her run this very big, very successful business. And I always knew since I was little, I'm going to own a business someday and I want to do it. My mom is doing. I just didn't want to run a cookie factory. And my dad was entrepreneurial. So I always knew grade school on that I was going to work for myself. So after college, I worked at a PR agency for literally 5 months and decided that was enough for me. I didn't want to work for anyone else. And I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm going to start my own business. I don't know what I want to do. Maybe something in social media, because that was a big thing 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I was the youngest person at the company. And they dumped all of the social media management on me. So I thought, okay, I don't love this, but I know how to do it. And I see a business opportunity. So I quit my job with all of my health insurance and my salary. And I was, how old? 23 at the time. And we had just gotten married and had no money. So it was a very crazy thing to do.
Best time to start a new business.
Yeah, exactly. When you're married and you're broke. And so my husband and I just went for it and I started my own business. And I ended up doing social media management and advertising management and web design, kind of like your basic agency that sort of does it all, because I didn't really know then what I wanted to do. And I ended up growing that for about 7 years. And it was a painful process in the beginning, not knowing, what niche I wanted to take or what path I wanted to take in the business. And I ended up niching down eventually to really focusing on social media management and Facebook advertising. So I did that for about 7 years, had a decent amount of success, but I still wasn't happy doing that. I am a writer, as you know, Glenn, you and I both have that in common, but it's tough to make a living as a writer, as you know. And so I just felt this thing in my heart for that whole time, really, where I was successful, I was making money, but I just felt like I kept hitting a wall financially and just motivation wise to keep growing this business that I created. And then a few years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago, I prayed about it and I really felt God telling me to shift my business and what I was doing. And so I decided I was going to shut down my other agency and then go full steam ahead with copywriting, which is what I truly love. And literally, it was crazy because it was right before COVID happened in 2020. We launched in 2019, but God was so good. We literally tripled our sales from my previous business in 1 year. So it was crazy. And we've just been going full steam ahead since then.
So amazing, so inspiring. And again, just to let everyone know, Anika and I are in the same mastermind together. And when I met her and talked to her and just saw how she had everything together, her business, her family life, her faith, everything came together. I was like, okay, this is someone I want to know, want to work with. And, I want to go back to, a lot of times people see like the end product. They're like, okay, well, she has an agency and she's just so awesome. But you actually talked about moments in time where you had a little bit of doubt. You actually had to rely on your faith. You had to really bet on yourself to get you where you are. And so talk about those times where, there's people who are listening right now. They're thinking, well, she's just super talented and she got everything handed to her, which is
Yeah.
not the case, right? Which is
Not
not
the
the
case.
case. So talk
Yeah.
about those times where you're,
Sure.
those times that entrepreneurs have where we're laying in bed and we're like staring
Yeah.
at the ceiling. I'm like, what am I doing?
What am I doing? Was this the worst idea ever?
So talk about like how you
Yeah.
manage that, and what is some advice for people who are gonna be facing that same thing when they're going through their journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say the first 3 years were super hard. Those were the absolute worst because we were newly married. My husband was also an entrepreneur and had some struggles with his own business. And we were broke. We had no money. He had a bunch of debt. And literally that first year of marriage, I think we had $5,000 in our bank account. So yes, I had a mom that was successful and made a lot of money, but I always did everything on my own. So I think that's a misconception some people have if you have successful parents, but my mom was like,
They
go
think
for it.
that they just gave you all this and just set
They
you up
do.
and you didn't have to do anything. Yeah, I know. And it's
Yeah.
probably really annoying when people assume that too, I would
It
imagine.
is. Yeah. I think looks can be deceiving. Like you said, it's easy to see the shiny product and the success at the end, but there were so many roadblocks and stumbles along the way. So the first year, I was literally selling our furniture and whatever we could to keep my business afloat. And I was going to networking meeting after networking meeting. I joined BNI. 5 days a week, I was out pitching myself in this business to anybody who would listen to me in Nashville, just trying to figure out how to make money and making a lot of mistakes too, just saying yes to every client out of sheer desperation because I needed the money to pay the bills, which turned into a snowball effect of having a lot of wrong clients who don't match me and my values and how I want to work with people. But it was all a learning experience, so out of everything I went through, I definitely learned what I wanted my business to look like and what I didn't want it to look like. But that was hard the first couple of years, just trying to figure out how to get that consistent income. And then after that, trying to figure out how to pull myself out of doing all of the work. That was another big obstacle because then I was just in the business so much, doing all of the work. So those were a couple of the big things, just, hitting those income goals first. And then the second big leap, which also took a couple years, was making sure I wasn't the one running the whole business.
Right.
I had to figure out a way to build a business that could run without me.
Well, do you find that the fact that you went through this experience, right? The struggle, the doubt, the grind, all those things, do you feel going through that makes you a better partner with all these companies that come for you for the copywriting help? Because, does that give you like insight of like what they're going through and what their experience? Did you find that whole experience helped you out?
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Because I feel like too, as a copywriter and offering writing as a service for other people, your story in general is such a huge part of your brand. And people buy from people these days, even if you do have a brand or e-commerce store or a brick and mortar, your story is a huge part of why people buy from you. So I can completely relate to that when clients order from us and they want copy. They'll often say, I want to make sure this sounds like me and that people understand my heart and why I'm
I think you're
doing
talking
that.
about me. That was what I was
That's
asking
fun.
you when I reached out to you.
Yes, definitely. So that always comes into play for sure.
Well, and you hit on another point, which is very important. It's something that I've been talking about with all my guests, but also on social media. I tell people, look, there's only so many hours in the day, right? You can sit there, you can have the best idea, and you can get a piece of paper out and keep writing and writing all day and trashing that paper. But sometimes you need to get people who are really talented and can do that. And you said it yourself. You're like, look, when I realized that I had to outsource certain things or offload certain things and delegate certain things, that's when I really took the next level there. So talk about that. Talk about how, copywriting is not like, hey, just writing something together. There's an art, there's a form behind it. And talk about how that's helped other entrepreneurs, but why, that's something you really should think about outsourcing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, having owned my own business for 10 years, I was stuck in this trap in the beginning, especially the first 5 years of wanting to do it all myself, wanting to write all my own copy, wanting to make all my own graphics, create all my own content. And you can get really stuck in that if you're trying to do everything. So all all of that time ends up getting sucked into you working in your business as opposed to on your business and helping your business grow. And so copywriting is, funnily enough, it's one of those things that most people hang on to. And it's one of the last things that people do want to outsource because they feel like it's so personal and they think, oh, but nobody's going to sound like me.
I feel like it should be one of the first things they send out.
It should be one of the
because
first.
Because it actually takes so much effort.
It's so time
and so much skill. And what I've learned with working with you, Anika, is that, you know, yeah, I'm worried about losing my voice and what I'm trying to convey, but that's where a good copywriter comes in. They actually take your ideas and what you want to get out there, and that's what they create. That's where you separate, like, and again, she won't brag on herself, but I will. Okay. That's where the good copywriters and the so-so or the average or even the mediocre copywriters, where the difference is that, well, they'll just write something, but the really good copywriters, they actually listen to what you want to do, and then they write exactly what you want to put out there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing too, whether it's outsourcing video in your business or your social media management, if that's not the thing, really, if it's not the thing that drives your business, that is creating sales and revenue, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Outsource somebody else to do what they do best. You know, so I outsource all of our graphics and all of our video. I don't want to learn how to make videos. I don't want to learn how to design graphics. I could, but it comes back to time, Glenn, which is what you mentioned.
I mean, you're a super mom, okay? You have a family at home. You got things to do, right? And again, you know, for those who are watching, it's not, and that's the biggest thing with delegation. People always have an issue. They're like, well, I can do it, and I think I can do it faster and whatnot.
Yeah.
The thing is like, the question is not whether you can do it. I mean, you're an intelligent person. You can figure out anything. The question is like, do you want to do that? Or do you want to take your daughter to her event, or you want to take your son to the movies? Okay. I mean, you say yes to something, you got to say no to something else. And so again, that's a big thing that people always don't get. And it blows my mind, because I'm like, I'd much rather have Anika and her team write the copy, because I know they'll do a good job, so that I can do something else.
Exactly. And you can work on things that will, you know, grow your business, or like you said, spend that time with your family or doing something that you enjoy. So there's always a sacrifice involved. When the more involved you get in your business and you're doing all these little things, you're going to lose time somewhere else. So I totally agree. And I think that's something that we really hope to help business owners with. And that's really why we created Moxie, was to free up time for entrepreneurs so they can work on the things they're best at, and we can handle the copy side of things for them.
So Anika, I want to shift gears a little bit here. And I noticed, you know, obviously I'm part of our community. You have a great Facebook community, really just helping people kind of getting into copywriting. Talk about that, and talk about, is there a program that's coming up, or is there something going on? Because again, you know, we need so many good copywriters, right? And there's so many people who are maybe talented writers, but again, it's all about, you know, you have the raw skill. You need someone to mentor you and to refine it, because at the end of the day, we have more good copywriters out there. That's good for all other businesses. So talk about your Facebook group, and I don't know if you can spill the beans, but there must be something here. There's something coming up. Can we talk about that real quick?
Definitely. Yeah. So I have a Facebook group called Conversion Copywriters, Beginners to Pros. So it's for people who are brand new to copywriting and want to learn how to write copy that converts. Or if
I am going to bring up something though.
Yes.
Even if you're not wanting to become a copywriter, it's actually a good group. I'm in that group, and I'm watching all of Anika's videos, and I'm like learning something new. And it actually gives me more insight, because, you know, whenever I work with our team, I'm like, oh, okay, I remember that point. I want to bring it up, you know? So again, even if you're not a copywriter, or maybe you have a team and they need to learn something, you need to be a part of this group. So I just wanted to throw it in there. Sorry for jumping in.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point, because even if you're not going to be writing copy is essential to selling any product or service. So the more you can understand things about copy, the more you can train your team, or the more you can kind of pass off those nuggets to other people who are working with you to make sure your copy is going to convert as high as possible. So we have that group. If anybody wants to join, I'm in there often sharing tips, kind of walking through people how to write great copy that converts. And then I do have a program coming out, hopefully in January, fingers crossed, called Ad Copy Accelerator. And that's specifically about how to write powerful ad copy that converts, because that's such a huge niche. And I can tell you, if you master one copywriting skill, if you can master the art of writing great ad copy, specifically for Facebook ads or Meta, I don't know what they're calling Facebook these days. We'll see, TBD. One of the most valuable copywriting skills you can have. And if you're a copywriter, it's one of the most lucrative. So that's going to be a really deep dive 3-week program where I will be mentoring people how to write really powerful Facebook ads that convert. So I'm super excited about that. And then later in the year, we're going to be launching a direct response copy academy, which teaches everything you need to know. That will be very hands-on, a lot of one-on-one mentoring with me for anybody who really wants to launch into copywriting. So all coming down the pipeline, but like you said, it's a juggling act. So
I love it. Okay. So just to let everyone know, I'm going to put this in the show notes as well. We're going to put this in a post where I think a good place to start is you're going to join the Facebook group. Okay. And Anika is going to let you know when all these great programs are coming out. I'm looking forward to it. I'm probably going to sign up my team for it. And here's saying that's coming from someone who actually uses her agency to do the copywriting, but it's all about learning. It's all about, learning how they work their craft and everything. And that makes you like a better client, right? It makes you better whenever you're giving feedback and give them the stuff they need. So I love it. I look forward to it. And we're going to put that in there. Okay, awesome. Okay, so Anika, we're going to shift gears. We do this, we do these next 2 segments with all our guests. And the next segment is the Big Entrepreneur 3. So I'm going to ask you some entrepreneurial questions. And the first one is going to be share a productivity tip that you use or that you really like for entrepreneurs. So share a tip for us.
Okay, awesome. I'm all about productivity. So there's a lot of things that I do, but I'd say the number one key thing I do is never go to bed without having a clear game plan for the next day. And I also don't like planning too far ahead. I don't like to look too far into my week, but the night before, when I finish up my work day, I'm always looking at the next day. I want to know what calls I have scheduled, what my fast 5 items are. So those are the top 5 things that I know I can do quickly and knock out. And then my big items that I know I need to tackle for that day. So for me, that's worked really well for the past 10 years. And I've kind of tweaked my own formula, but I just have a Google document. I don't like a journal for as far as my schedule and mapping out my week, but I just have a Google Doc. It's never longer than 1 sheet because my brain gets overwhelmed if I see too many things I have to do.
Me too.
So I literally just, at the end of each day, I modify that so I can shut my computer, hang out with my husband and my daughter, and just know, okay, I know what's happening tomorrow. I don't have to think about it, but that's been really, really helpful for me as far as productivity.
I love that. I love that. I think I'm going to adopt that myself. Okay, so the next one is share a tool. It could be like a digital tool or non-digital tool that helps you as an entrepreneur. So an actual tool.
Yeah. So again, I have so many, but one that I am loving right now is Slack. It is a great tool for communication, especially with your team internally. And that's the biggest thing that we use it for. And the thing I love about that is we'll do a morning check-in with our internal team just to say, hey, here's the items I'm working on today. Just so you guys know where I'm at. Let me know if you need help with anything. Because I found that when we were communicating so much via email, everything would get buried in those email chains. So I love Slack. It's very easy to use. You can see everything that is being communicated with your team. And we also use it with our copywriters too. So if they have questions, they know they can jump into Slack at any time. And I'm loving Slack. Slack has been one of the best things for our business.
It just keeps things so organized because when you get a bunch of emails, all of a sudden you just like, I don't even know where anything is. Exactly. You look at your email box, it's like huge. It gives you like anxiety and everything. Yes. And so I love Slack as well. I use that as well. Okay, so this might be hard because again, you're a writer and you also love to read. So you're going to have to pick one. You're going to have to pick one.
This is easy for me, Glenn. When you asked me this question, I was like, I already know.
Okay. I'm looking forward to hearing about it. So share your favorite business or philosophy book.
Yes, it is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay, it is.
Have you read that book?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I love it.
I love this book so much. I read it, I think 9 years ago, right after I started my business. And If you guys haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, please read it. This is a fundamental book that every business owner should read, period. I love Robert Kiyosaki. I'm such a fan of everything he does, but it really flipped everything upside down for me in terms of viewing money and investing and risk, because he was saying things like, you know, don't save your money. Don't be afraid of debt. Going into debt is good. Just his whole philosophy on money was so interesting. So it really broke through to me, and I felt like, okay, I should be taking risks financially. It's okay to use debt to grow my business. And the biggest thing that it shifted for me was breaking down the 4 quadrants of, I think it was E is you're an employee, S is self-employed, B is business owner, and I is investor. And I always thought I was a business owner until I read that book and I realized I was just self-employed. I had built myself a job that was exhausting and overwhelming and that required me to do all
there too.
Yeah. And so that really was like so huge for me, because I, after reading that book, decided, okay, no, I need to have a business that runs without me, with systems and templates, and that can be stamped out by other people. So that's hands down my favorite book. And I've probably read it 20 times. That's how much I love it.
You know, I think that there should be a handful of books that every young person should read. That is one of them, right? That is one of them. So again, every young person, it should be required reading. It should be required reading before you go out into the adult world.
I agree.
That should be
100%.
one of those books.
Yeah.
And I think if people read that, and there's a few other books that I would probably throw in the mix too, that if you read that, then you would be okay. You would be on the right track. So again, I totally agree. I love that book as well. So, you know, and I'm glad you answered it. A lot of times people are like, oh, let me think. It's like choosing my favorite child or something like that. But you knew right away. So I love
I know.
So, you know, a big part of just growing as an entrepreneur is actually learning from our mistakes. And, you know, you've actually brought that up in the beginning of our podcast here, how you learn from that. And again, there's so many highlight reels out there. I mean, social media is highlight reel, right? You see people like, oh, they're doing so good. They never had a problem, but everyone's success is paved by mistakes. And so this next segment is called Learning from the Past. And I'd like to ask you a few things.
Okay.
And the first one is, what is like a big mistake that you made that you learned a lot from?
Yeah, I love that question. That's an excellent question. So I would say the biggest mistake that I made was not doing something I enjoyed more in the first 7 years of my business. A lot of times I feel like Americans in particular always say, you know, follow your passion, pursue your passion. And I don't agree with that entirely. What I do feel like, though, is you should do something you're passionate about. You know, so you have to have passion for what you're doing as a business, whether you own a car wash or you're in copywriting or you're a dentist, you have to have some kind of passion for what you're doing. But I do feel like sometimes if you pursue your passion, which for me would be writing fiction books, that's not always the right choice in business. So that's kind of a separate thing. But I do feel like if you don't have some level of passion for your business and what you're doing, you are never going to grow to the levels you'd like to grow. You're never going to feel the joy that you could feel from your business and the fulfillment of doing something entrepreneurial. And for me, for those first 7 years, I knew I wanted to do something with writing, but I kind of shut that down because I didn't know how to go about it. And I didn't love what I was doing. So I didn't wake up every day with that natural motivation and energy and passion to grow and scale and be innovative. And so my biggest mistake, I think, was not listening to that gut feeling that I had, you know, from the very beginning. I wish I would have jumped to copywriting sooner and that I would have just gone with my gut and done something I had more passion about, because, you know, as soon as I did, we tripled our income in 1 year, which was crazy. And that wasn't because I worked so hard or, you know, I did something, I invested a lot of money, because I didn't. I worked just as hard as I did in my first business. The difference, I feel like, was really having passion about what I was doing.
I mean, you were excited about it, right?
I was
and you
so
were even
excited
more
about it.
motivated. I absolutely love that. And again, it's finding that right balance, right? Finding that right balance where you have passion, the industry needs it, and you're actually good at it, right? And again, there's a lot of things that you could do. Think like being good at something. You can actually affect that, right? You can actually get better. You can train yourself. You can put the time in. You can get better, right? As far as the market wanting something, you can do some market research. You can figure it out to where they would want it. But the one thing you can't manufacture is whether you're passionate. So that is so true. That is so true. Like if you don't like doing something, you could be making a lot of money, but you could be making that commute and just dreading your life.
Right.
Life is too short for that. So I absolutely love that. That's a great lesson. Timeless lesson everyone needs to take. All right. So if you can go back in time, if you can jump in your DeLorean and go back in time, you get in your hot tub time machine and go back in time, right? And you can run into the younger version of yourself. What would you tell her?
I would have told myself to take bigger risks, because I think it also ties into what I just said about your passion. Because I feel like I wasn't passionate about what I did for the first 7 years, I never took a lot of risks in my business. So I didn't want to spend a lot of money. I was afraid to spend money. I was afraid to invest in trainings. I was afraid to spend money on advertising. So they kind of almost go together, but I feel like I would have told myself when I first started to take bigger risks financially by pursuing something I was more passionate about and not being afraid financially. I think this is important too. If you don't feel passion for your business, you're going to feel apprehensive to spend money on your business, right? Because if you don't believe in it, if you don't truly believe in what you're doing and how it's helping customers, and that you're filling a gap in the marketplace, and that you're really doing something worthwhile that you enjoy, it's hard to spend money. So I think I really stayed stuck for about 7 years, and I capped off at a certain place financially until I made that shift. So I think once you know that thing that you feel passionate about, that it fills a need in the market and that you're good at, don't be afraid to take risks, because once you find that sweet spot and you take risks, it's not always going to pay off. But for me personally, and a lot of people I know, it typically does pay off, and it pays off a lot sooner.
And you'll never know, right? That's the thing.
You only know what
you know, right? You only know what you know. And if all you know is doing it a certain way or learning a certain way, then you're always going to be stuck there. You're always going to get the same result. It's so funny because I made a post about this too, is that if it was obvious, it was something that you're doing and you're only getting a certain result, if you keep on doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result.
Insanity. Yes.
Insanity. Yes, exactly. Okay. So, there's someone who's watching this right now. There's someone who's listening right now. They're like, you know what? I'm also passionate about writing, and I also want to get into copywriting. Right. So if you were at a Starbucks and you were getting your coffee and they just looked at you, it's like, can you just tell me how I can do, what are the things I need to do what you do? What would you tell them? How would you reverse engineer that within a few minutes and explaining it to them?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say first, you have to be really good at writing. If you want to have any sort of copywriting, content writing business, you have to be really, really good at writing. So invest in some training, spend a ton of time reading books about copywriting and content writing, and get really, really good at the craft. You're not going to do anything well if you don't know how to do that skill well. So you have to become a good copywriter. The next thing I would do is document everything you do and how you do it. This is how I built my whole business, because it started with me just writing all the copy. And I thought, if I'm going to sell this as a service and hire other writers, so I'm not doing all the work in my business, I have to document how I do everything and make it a implementable, repeatable process that any copywriter could follow who has talent. So I did Google Docs. I was very meticulous about labeling each type of copy that we write. I determined what types of copy that I wanted to offer. And that's the thing too, you can't offer everything for everyone. So I'd highly recommend niching down what you want to do. And the thing we really specialize in is direct response. So I basically said, I want to offer these copywriting services. And then I had procedures and protocols and templates for each of those. So you really have to document exactly how someone else is going to jump into your shoes and repeat what you're doing. And then the third thing I would say is really spend time also creating processes for finding other copywriters. And I would say with our agency, out of every 20 writers that we interview and talk to, we keep one. So we're very picky and we're very thorough, and we have very thorough testing. So That's the simplest way I could explain what we do and how to reverse engineer it. So step one would be get really, really good at copywriting. Step two would be record all of your processes, your templates, your frameworks for writing that copy. And then step three would be having a really good screening process for finding other writers who can implement those processes. And then step four would be market yourself. And that's a whole nother thing. But if you can do those three things and master that, I think that's amazing, because I knew, I could have gone the path of just freelance writing. But again, if we talk about Robert Kiyosaki, I don't want to stay self-employed and be the one doing all the writing. So if you're a copywriter and you enjoy writing, but you don't want to do the freelance lifestyle grind, which can be very up and down, and that can be a tough lifestyle, this is a great business model because it allows you to still be involved in the thing that you love, which is writing, but not to have to do all of the writing on your own. So I can take a week off. We're still going to deliver copy to our clients. I'm still going to get paid, but we're still doing copywriting for other people. So I think it turned out pretty good.
I think it did. And I think that's amazing advice. I mean, very thorough. And I will add one more thing, is that when you have a team and you have a team that you're working with, you also have the honor of impacting their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, so Anika has all these people who love writing, who love copywriting, and now she's given them a safe place for them to pursue their dreams too. And I think that's always something that sometimes as business owners, we forget sometimes, like, hey, we're actually helping our team out. We're just thinking about, we gotta, fulfill all these duties we have to do for our clients, but actually in the process, we're actually impacting lives too, right? So again, I love what you build, and that is an amazing answer. Okay, so we kind of gave a teaser. I can't believe this went by so fast. I mean, I definitely need to bring you back on for sure, because there's so much more we need to talk about. But I kind of teased the fact that there's some courses that are coming up, right? And I also talked about the Facebook group. But for those who are listening right now and they're like, okay, I either want to work with you for my own business, outsourcing copywriting, or I just want to follow you and learn about what you do in general. What's the best way for them to kind of follow you and stay in contact with you?
Definitely. So our website is moxiecopywriting.com, MOXIE copywriting. So that's where you can see all of the copywriting services that we offer. You can get copy on demand if you need it for your ads or your email, sales pages, anything that you need. We can take care of that for you. And it's kind of cool because it's basically an e-commerce store for copy. So you can just add what you need to your cart and then check out. And then we also have monthly plans for people who have agencies or have a large volume of copy needs, and you save 15% on everything when you have a copy plan. But as far as connecting with me, if you're a copywriter, I love training writers. I love connecting with other copywriters. So I would say just look me up on Facebook or Instagram, Anika Watkins, and send me a message and I will definitely respond personally.
Join the Facebook group.
And join the Facebook group.
You get all this free training and amazing training. There's all like an awesome community that you can be other copywriters as well. So we'll put all in the comments section. But Anika, thank you so much for being a guest. I really appreciate it. And guys, thanks for tuning in. And again, look at those show notes. Join that Facebook group. And if you have issues with your own copywriting, look her up. Look up her company either as a client or maybe, when she's ready, you're going to let us know, right?
Yes, I will let you know for sure.
We're going to sign up for those courses. So Anika, thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in.